Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are opening up really the mathematical scaffolding for modern strategy, game theory.
Yeah, and it's so much more than just, playing poker in some back room.
Exactly. Forget those images. This is, well, it's a revolutionary tool that really transformed how the world's biggest players make decisions.
We're talking nations, militaries, huge corporations, even AI systems now. High-stakes stuff.
So our mission today, we want to give you a complete shortcut. We'll unpack the brilliant, almost unbelievable mind behind it all.
John von Neumann.
Right. Then we'll follow its path from pure competition to complex cooperation and distill what game theory really tells you about anticipating and maybe even shaping the behavior of others.
But yeah, we have to start at the beginning with von Neumann himself.
Okay, tell us about him. Born 1903, Budapest.
That's right, John von Neumann. And he wasn't just smart. He was, well, a true intellectual force of nature, just legendary stories about his early abilities. Things like doing incredibly complex calculations in his head faster than adults could write them down. Photographic memory, apparently.
Wow.
And his genius wasn't narrow. It spanned mathematics, logic, physics, economics. He was constantly bridging fields people thought were totally separate.
And this wasn't happening in a vacuum, right? The timing matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about the backdrop. Post-World War I, Europe, immense volatility. Intellectual circles were desperate for logical tools.
Tools to understand what?
Conflict, cooperation.
Yeah.
Why do people fight? Why do they sometimes work together? Von Neumann saw that the same kind of logic he used for, say, particle physics could maybe apply to messy human decisions.
Yeah.
Strategic conflict.
And that drive to apply pure math to human problems eventually brought him to the U.S.
Yes, in the 1930s, he ended up at Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study.
Which was quite the place to be.
Oh, unbelievably so. Not just an academic center, it was like a nexus of talent. He was shoulder to shoulder with people like Albert Einstein, Kurt Gödel. Just imagine the conversations, a real pressure cooker of invention.
So, surrounded by these giants, what was the core question driving him? What problem did he think mathematics could finally crack?
It really boiled down to predictability in conflict. The question was, okay, if you have multiple rational actors, right, all chasing their own goals, can you predict the outcome?
And where did he start?
He started with the simplest, maybe the most brutal scenario, zero-sum games.
Okay, zero-sum, what does that mean exactly?
It's pure competition. Simple as that. One player's gain is exactly equal to the other player's loss.
Like chess or poker, fixed pot.
Exactly. Think of a fixed pot in cards or chess. What you win, I lose. Period.
His crucial early insight, which he actually hinted at back in the 1920s, was the minimax theorem.
Minimax, what did that theorem show? It stated that in any two-player, zero-sum game, there's always an optimal strategy for each player. Always a best way to play, mathematically speaking.
And what does that mean practically for someone playing the game?
Well, it means your best strategy isn't necessarily to maximize your own gain. Instead, you play to minimize your maximum possible loss.
Ah, okay. So it's defensive. Protect yourself from the worst thing your opponent could do to you.
Precisely. It suggested that even in this really intense winner-take-all competition, there was a predictable, kind of logical path, a safe way to play, assuming your opponent is also rational.
In this foundational work, it really came together in his big book, right?
Yes, 1944. Theory of Games and Economic Behavior. He co-authored it with an economist, Oscar Morgenstern. In this book, it essentially created a new field.
How so?
They introduced the language we still use today. Terms like players, strategies, payoffs. They basically laid out the vocabulary.
But it wasn't just defining terms, was it? There was a key innovation in how they thought about payoffs.
Absolutely. The concept of utility. This was huge because it allowed the theory to go beyond just, dollars and cents.
What do you mean by utility?
Utility measures how much a player subjectively values a particular outcome. It's not just the objective value.
Give us an example.
Okay, so if you offer a very wealthy person $1,000 and you offer someone struggling financially $1,000, the monetary amount is identical.
Right.
But the utility, the actual satisfaction, the perceived value is vastly different for the person who needs it more.
I see. So it brings in psychology, preferences, risk tolerance.
Exactly. By incorporating all that subjective stuff into the mathematical model, the theory could finally start to grapple with how real people make decisions in the real world.
Okay, but that zero-sum world, even with utility, it's still quite narrow, isn't it? Pure conflict feels like only part of the story.
It is. Most of life isn't strictly zero-sum. Think about business mergers, political alliances, simple negotiations.
Right. Scenarios where maybe both sides can gain something. Or maybe both sides mess up and lose.
Precisely. These are non-zero-sum games. And that's where the next really revolutionary mind comes into the picture. John Nash.
John Nash. Late 1940s.
Yes. Nash dramatically expanded the theory to handle these non-zero-sum situations. He showed how games could be mixed. You could have elements of cooperation and competition happening at the same time.
And his big contribution was the Nash equilibrium.
That's the one, the Nash equilibrium. It's a fundamental concept.
How would you explain it simply?
Okay, think of it like this. You've reached a Nash equilibrium when, considering what everyone else is doing, no single player can improve their own situation by unilaterally changing their strategy.
So if I change my move while everyone else stays the same, I'll actually do worse, or at least no better.
Exactly, you're kind of locked in. Everyone is doing the best they can given what everyone else is doing. It provides stability, a way to understand why certain outcomes stick, even in really complex interactions.
And the classic example to illustrate this is the prisoner's dilemma.
Oh yes, the prisoner's dilemma. It's famous for a reason. It's brilliant at showing the power of the Nash equilibrium concept.
Remind us why it's so critical for understanding strategic behavior.
Well, it perfectly highlights this tension between what's best for the individual acting rationally and what's best for the group collectively.
Okay, the setup. Two prisoners, interrogated separately.
Right. If they both stay silent, cooperate with each other, they both get a fairly light sentence. That's the best collective outcome. But the way the game is set up, it incentivizes betrayal. From each prisoner's individual perspective, defecting is always the safer bet, no matter what the other one does.
How so?
Well, think about it. If the other guy stays silent and you defect, you walk free. Best possible outcome for you.
Okay. And if the other guy defects?
If the other guy defects, you definitely want to defect too, because otherwise you get the maximum sentence. Defecting gives you a medium bad outcome instead of the worst one.
So rationally, both players figure this out.
And they both defect. They betray each other. They reach that stable point, the Nash equilibrium, where neither can improve by changing their mind alone.
Even though they both end up with a worse sentence than if they'd cooperated.
Exactly. It's an inefficient equilibrium. It's stable, but suboptimal. And it explains so much about why we get stuck in bad patterns in real life, arms races, price wars, overfishing common resources.
That ability to model these, well, inefficient but stable outcomes, that must have caught people's attention outside of academia pretty quickly.
Oh, immediately. It propelled game theory right into the highest levels of global strategy. Its real baptism by fire was the Cold War.
Right, high stakes indeed.
Yeah. Zero-sum logic, in particular, offered this kind of terrifying clarity for military planners, government advisors, especially at places like the RAND Corporation.
They applied it directly to nuclear strategy.
Directly. Modeling, escalation, retaliation, first strikes, second strikes, all of it. This analysis was absolutely central to the whole concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD.
So MAD is essentially a game theory finding. You could almost say it's a Nash equilibrium itself.
You absolutely could. The model showed that in that ultimate high-stakes, arguably zero-sum nuclear game, stability didn't come from trust or goodwill.
It came from fear.
Calculable fear, yes. The math suggested the only rational move was inaction, because any other move guaranteed catastrophic loss for both sides, assuming, of course, your opponent was also perfectly rational. That was a big assumption.
And beyond the purely military side, this thinking seeped into diplomacy too?
Straight away. Game models were used, sometimes explicitly, sometimes implicitly, to simulate outcomes in major diplomatic standoffs.
Like Berlin, Cuba.
Things like the Berlin blockade, the Cuban Missile Crisis, yeah. Trying to map out moves and countermoves, finding paths to a stable, peaceful equilibrium. It also shaped more conventional diplomacy treaty negotiations, applying sanctions effectively.
Which brings up the idea of credibility, right? How does that fit in?
Hugely important. Game theory really demonstrated that for any strategic move to work, whether it's a promise, a threat, a pledge, it must be credible. Your opponent has to believe you'll actually follow through.
How do you make something credible?
Often it requires signaling your resolve through actions that are costly or difficult to reverse. Think about deploying troops or making a very public commitment. If a threat is cheap talk, easy to make but painful to execute, a rational opponent just won't buy it.
And you see similar dynamics playing out constantly in the business world, I imagine.
All the time, especially in markets dominated by just a few big firms, what economists call oligopolies.
Like airlines or maybe tech giants?
Exactly. Think Aerospace, telecom, software giants.
Yeah.
Their interactions are intensely strategic. Price cuts, big advertising campaigns, R&D races, often these feel very zero-sum in the short term. One firm's market share gain is another's loss. They're constantly calculating that strategic advantage.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. What happens when the game isn't just a one-off, when players know they'll interact again and again?
Ah, yes, repeated games. This changes everything because now today's action casts a long shadow. Today's betrayal could bring tomorrow's punishment.
Which makes cooperation potentially more rational.
Absolutely. Suddenly, cooperation can become the most rational, long-term strategy. The shadow of the future, as it's sometimes called, looms large.
Can you give an example of a strategy in a repeated game?
A classic one is the trigger strategy often seen in pricing. Imagine two companies. They might implicitly cooperate to keep prices relatively high,
Okay.
but they each have a clear, credible threat. If you undercut my price even slightly, I will immediately trigger an aggressive, sustained price war. Punishment.
So the threat of that punishment keeps everyone in line.
Exactly. It's a mechanism really for enforcing mutual restraint and maintaining that cooperative high-price equilibrium. It works because the punishment is credible and automatic.
But not all games are played with perfect information, are they? What about when one side knows more than the other?
Right. That's a huge area. Asymmetric information. When one player has critical knowledge the other lacks. Game theory helped formalize how we deal with this, mainly through two concepts: signaling and screening.
Okay, signaling first. That's the informed player trying to send a message.
Yes, the player with the information takes an action to credibly convey that information to the player without it. The classic example is getting an expensive university degree.
How is that signaling?
Because it's costly, time, money, effort. It's hard to fake effectively. So it serves as a reasonably trustworthy signal of competence or perseverance to potential employers who can't directly observe those qualities.
Makes sense. And screening is the flip side.
Exactly. Screening is when the less informed party designs a situation or a choice architecture to get the informed party to reveal their hidden information.
Like how?
Think about insurance deductibles. By offering plans with different deductible levels, the insurance company encourages customers to self-select. People who know they're high risk are more likely to choose a lower deductible and pay a higher premium, effectively revealing their private information about their risk level.
That information gap, that asymmetry, it can really mess things up, can it?
Oh, profoundly. If it's severe enough, it can cause markets to completely break down. The famous example is the market for lemons used cars.
Right, the lemons problem. Explain that quickly.
Okay, so buyers can't easily tell if a used car is good quality, a peach, or bad quality, a lemon. So what do? They offer a price based on the average quality they expect.
Which is somewhere between a peach and a lemon price.
Right. But sellers who know they have a peach aren't willing to sell at that low average price, so they pull their good cars out of the market.
Leaving mostly.
Lemons, which lowers the average quality further, which lowers the price buyers are willing to pay, and eventually the market can collapse because only lemons are left and nobody wants them. Information asymmetry destroyed the trust needed for the market to function.
So we've talked about rational players, optimal strategies, but let's be honest, real people aren't always perfectly rational calculators, are they?
Not even close. And that's a huge caveat. And it leads us to behavioral game theory. This field tries to incorporate insights from psychology into the models.
Acknowledging the human element.
Precisely. Classical game theory often predicts behavior that just doesn't match what people actually do in experiments. Behaviorists started running these experiments and found, well, discrepancies.
What's a key example of that?
The ultimatum game is probably the most famous.
Okay, walk us through that one.
Simple setup. Player A gets a sum of money, say $100. They have to propose a split with player B. Player B can either accept the split and they both get the money accordingly, or reject it.
And if player B rejects?
Both players get nothing, zero.
So purely rationally, what should player B do?
Classical theory says player B should accept any positive offer, even $1, because $1 is better than the $0 they get if they reject, right?
Logically, yes, but that's not what happens.
Not consistently. Time and time again in labs across the world, offers that are perceived as unfair, usually anything less than maybe 20 or 30% of the total sum, get rejected quite often.
People would rather get nothing than accept an unfair split.
Yes. They're willing to punish unfairness, even at a direct financial cost to themselves. This shows that things like fairness, reciprocity, social norms, They fundamentally influence strategic choices.
So behavioral game theory tries to account for these factors, like
Yeah.
loss aversion.
Exactly. Incorporating findings like loss aversion, the psychological fact that people tend to fear a loss much more than they value an equivalent gain, makes the models much more predictive of actual human behavior.
And this blend, this more nuanced understanding of strategy, it seems like it's become the backbone for a lot of modern technology, especially online.
Absolutely. It's embedded in the algorithms that run huge parts of the digital economy.
Such as?
Well, think about auction theory. It's a branch of game theory used to design the incredibly complex auctions for things like digital ad space or governments auctioning off wireless spectrum licenses.
How does game theory help there?
These systems often use sophisticated mechanisms like the VCG, Vickrey-Clark-Groves mechanism, specifically designed to incentivize bidders to reveal their true valuations. It aligns their individual rational interest with the overall goal, like maximizing revenue or efficiency.
Which leads us to maybe the most advanced application, mechanism design. You said earlier we've been talking about predicting behavior under fixed rules.
Right. Mechanism design flips that logic. It's the reverse.
How so?
Instead of predicting the outcome of a game with given rules, mechanism design is about designing the rules of the game itself to achieve a desired outcome, assuming players will act rationally within those rules.
So you're engineering the incentives from the start.
Precisely. Think of it like this. Game theory helps you predict traffic jams on the existing road network. Mechanism design helps you design the roads, the traffic lights, the toll systems in the first place to ensure traffic flows smoothly.
And where is that being used now?
Oh, all over.
Yeah.
Designing better voting systems, creating stable digital marketplaces, engineering the incentive structures and blockchain protocols to make cheating prohibitively costly or irrational. It's really about building systems that channel self-interest towards a collective good.
It's incredible. From von Neumann just trying to formalize competition back in the 1920s and 30s.
To these intricate algorithms shaping our global systems today.
The legacy seems crystal clear. Game theory gave us this universal framework, didn't it? It brought mathematical precision to what seemed like the chaos of human interaction.
It really did. It fundamentally taught us that every strategic decision you make has to be made in relation to how you expect others to react. Anticipating the response is key.
So at the end of the day, what's the core power of the theory?
I think it offers immense clarity. It's a lens. It reveals what happens when rational, or even predictably irrational players, pursue their goals under a specific set of rules. It maps the strategic landscape.
But it doesn't tell you where to go on that map, does it?
No, it doesn't dictate values. It doesn't provide a moral compass. It tells you how to potentially achieve a goal, but it's silent on whether that goal is actually wise or good.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. Game theory is this incredibly powerful engine for strategy, but choosing the right game to play in the first place, deciding what kind of system, what kind of interactions you want to foster or participate in, that task remains fundamentally human.
Yeah. As many who've studied this deeply conclude, the smartest strategy always starts by seeing the whole board clearly, understanding who the players really are, and remembering that the best move is almost never made entirely alone. We move together, whether we realize it or not.